Hi guys, so in this video I am going to go over with you again so you can do your project with me step by step just by watching this and stopping and starting me as you need to. So let's get going. I am going to first do file and I'm just going to open the images and mine are on my desktop, and what I want to do first is let's go to the one we used here, and I'll start with this one and open, and I'm going to hit Command or 0 or Control 0, that's right if you're on a PC, but I'm going to do that and it brings it full screen. And what we're doing in this assignment is that we're going to take the color out and then we are going to clip a pattern to it, as well as clipping another layer of a color to it. So getting back into getting comfortable with doing clipping masks on things. So what we're going to do first is I'm already on the selection tool. So I'm going to go over and hit select and mask. I like my view. We've talked about this on the very first time, but I like my view on overlay. It makes it very clear to me what I'm selecting and not selecting. And using my tablet, I'm going to come over here and let the computer do it for me first and see if it'll do what I need. And come in here. Now I'm going to zoom in with Z and make sure, I'm just going to check the edges. And then if I hold the space bar, the little hand will come up and then I can kind of pan around the image. There's a little something right here that I need to fix. So what I'm going to do is grab the brush, and then to make the brush smaller, remember the left bracket key on the keyboard. There we go. Guys, these things have to be perfect. Think about it. I mean, if you get a job for a company and part of your job description is to help, let's say, with e-commerce and photoshopping the different offerings. Now let's say you do that, and all you have to do is hold the Alt key. Let me make this a little bigger so you can see. And put it up here. If you hold the Alt key, notice how that plus sign goes to a minus. So if you do something like that and it's off and it's not exactly what you want, just hold the Alt key. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller again. Just hold the Alt key and it's just like erasing it back in. So just like that. And that is a way that you can go around and kind of clean up everything. I feel here there's a little red, so let me get that out of there. All right, so here is something that you guys have to pay attention to, and I'm noticing that you're not. And what we're doing is if you go down to output, often it will be on layer mask, and you guys just go down and you hit OK. It's not OK. Make certain on this project that it is new layer and hit OK. And then it comes to the new layer. I'm going to zoom back out, Command 0, and there are my socks. And then automatically this background layer will turn off. So just hit the eyeball and it's back on. And we are going to be working with this background copy layer. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to clip a pattern to this, but also I'm going to change its color. And I'm not going to change its color with hue saturation. I'm going to change its color with a actual layer on top and clipping it. In doing this, let's say my boss says, you know, this is the Pantone number that you have to use. I've been emailed these Pantone swatches. I open them up in Photoshop and then I just grab them and fill. I'm not going to go over and try to do image hue saturation and make it match. I've been told specifically what a color is, and that would be a reason to do something like this. So the first thing we have to do if we're going to clip a color to anything is we need to remove the existing color, and that's very easily done. So I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and we've done this before at the very beginning of the semester. Remember when you made one of the images black and white? Now what I'm going to do is make the socks black and white and remove all color and hit OK. Well, they look gray, they need to be brightened, and every image is going to be different than what I do, so what I'm going to do is just tell you to keep playing until you get it the way you want. So I would play with brightness, I would play with levels and exposure. So let's go to levels first. And if you play around in here, notice what happens to the socks. If I go that way, if I go this way, I can brighten them a little and something like this, and I'm say, okay, but I want to keep a little contrast because I want shadows. I don't want to lose any of the shadows on here. So maybe let me go to brightness and contrast, and if I brighten them up a little, I might go down like that, and then a little more contrast, a little brighter, something along those lines. Hit OK. I might go back to levels, something along those lines. I want to make sure that the color clip's pretty true, so you want some lighter. And then something else you could probably play around with is adjustments and exposure. So you can really make them bright, which you do not need to do. You can make them dark, but trying to play around with a little bit of the exposure. I don't think I'm going to. So this is highlighted, so I'm just going to take it right back to 0. Offset, just to show you what offset can do. Same thing, back to 0. I'm not going to use any of those, and certainly not the gamma right now. So just hit cancel. I'm okay with this, so I'm going to work with this now. So I have this layer. So the next thing I'm going to do is I've gone on and I have just drag this in, and then remember, if it comes in with the X, it's just in transform mode. Hit enter or return on your keyboard, and you'll be ready to roll. Now what I'm going to do on this is I'm going to go ahead and make this layer a multiply blending mode so I can see through and see the socks underneath. That way I can go ahead and play with scale. So to do that, drag it in, and if your computer doesn't allow you to drag, I think some of the PCs there don't, then remember, go to File, and then Place Embedded, and then find the file, and then bring it in that way, okay? So I'm going to hit Cancel. So I'm going to come back over here, and what I'm going to do now is Normal and Multiply. And if you have a white on any of your images and you hit multiply, it automatically goes transparent. If this were a color, it'd be a different story. Now, if you can see, the scale of these hearts are too big for the socks from what for me. I mean, if you want them bigger, you can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command T. Remember, that takes it back in transform mode. And I'm going to hold the Shift key so I can keep it constrained and try to find a scale that I like. And so I'm happy with that. Remember, if you don't hold the Shift key, this can happen, and you've distorted the image. So Command Z, back to what I was doing. So make certain you hold the Shift key when you're trying to change scale. So I'm okay with that. So I'm going to hit Return, and then remember how to clip. Make sure that you're on the layer of the image that you're clipping to. The socks are kind of the glue, remember? So we're clipping this pattern to those socks. I'm going to hold the Alt key and hover between the two with the pattern layer highlighted and on top of what you're clipping it to. As soon as you see that box, click, and they actually clip to the garment itself. So what I'm also going to do now is I'm going to go back to my background, and then I'm going to add a new layer in between the two because I want to now maybe change these socks to a color. And if I put the color on top of the black and do a blending mode, it's going to mix in with it. So I'm just going to put it in between the two. And it just helps you get comfortable with moving around and knowing that you can put layers. You can squeeze them in if you need to. If you forgot to do something, you can go back in and put a layer in between something. So remember, when you add a new layer, it always puts it on top. So I'm going to go to the background and squish it between the two. So I'm going to hit New Layer. Then I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, go to Color, and that was the last color I had. So I'll just stick with that. And notice nothing's happening yet because I have not done a blending mode. So it is a solid opaque. There is no shadow, nothing. It's two-dimensional and flat. So what I need to do is also clip this to that layer, which it automatically is, so I don't have to do that actually because I put it in between the two. But then the next thing I need to do is hit multiply on that as well. And so then you can also play around with the opacity of that kind of thing if you wanted to do a clipping or wanted to do a lighter color. And then let's say I want to offer a client a couple options, so here's this, or I'm making different colorways and I'm going to save all of these as JPEGs and send them out. What I'm going to do now is add another layer. It's automatically clipped because it's in between the one that clipped on top. And then Shift Delete is the shortcut to go to color. So I'm going to go to color and let me find a color like this and hit OK. And I'm going to fill this one. Same thing and multiply. And then turn off the green so it doesn't mix. And then what I would do at this point is you can export it as a PNG, you can export it as a JPEG with file export. Or what you can do is if you wanted to do a quick PNG, I can take it to my desktop and I will hit save and there it goes. And then what I can do is turn on the green, turn off the blue if I was trying to send these to someone and give them options, and then do the same thing. File, export, quick PNG. I'm going to have to change the name, so I'll just add another number in it because I just saved the other one and it's the same file to the computer. So I'm going to hit save, and then if you'll see, here they are on my desktop. Okay, so it's a great way to work within one file and do that. So that's how you would do this on something for fashion. So fashion students, you work with with images that are appropriate to your majors, and the VMed and the housing and exhibition design students, you guys find images of chairs. So what I'm going to do is the same thing for you. I'm about to open up another one, file open, or mine's right here, and on my Mac it will easily allow me. I'm going to take these chairs and just, well, let's do it a little slower, and then put it right here on the top bar and it'll open. Now this is a tiny image and it's going to pixelate on me, so I probably should have found a better image. I was just pulling it for reference, so just please know that this image is going to be a little pixelated because it wasn't a high res when I took it off of online, but no worries, I can still do this just for demo purposes. Now let's say I have same thing. I'm going to do this. I need to hit a selection tool, go to mask and select, and I'm going to let the computer kind of do quick selection for me first to see what it does. And here, now I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I've noticed that I need to clean up in here. So I'm going to grab my brush, and there's some red right here. And these are just tints that are on here, but I'm going to go up here, clean this up a little. Make sure you do this final step. You want to clean everything. Don't just do what the computer gives you, because as you can see, it just kind of goes in and guesses, but there's a lot of cleanup. Up here too, so I'm going to make my brush smaller and hold the Alt key to do the opposite, which is paint more red right back in around that edge. And let's say, okay, I'm happy with this. Same thing, please check that you're outputting to a new layer. There it is. And I'm going to turn on the original layer. And this one is kind of tricky because it has those pink tones in it. So that's why I wanted to make sure when I cleaned up, if it stayed pink, I knew it meant it was part of the image. So I'm going to zoom back out a little. So I have this. So the next step I would do for this, just like we did with the socks, image, black and white. So I'm going to walk through the same thing I already have done, but I'm going to do it now with a piece of furniture. So, okay, then I'm going to play with the adjustments until I get it the way I want it, and everybody's image is going to be a little different, so make sure you get it to where you can have some brightness. So I'm going to play with contrast and brightness. Let's say I'm happy with that. Okay, so this time instead of clipping the pattern first, I'll clip the color first. So I've removed the color out of that, and I'm going to add a new layer, and then Shift Delete on my Mac for the shortcut, and color. Use something more along these lines. Okay, and now what I do is hover between the two if this happens. Remember, we're clipping, we haven't clipped yet. Hold the Alt key when you hover and see that box, clip, And then the last step is to make this a blending mode so we can blend the two layers together using multiply. And you can see in here that I still needed to clean up a little. So I have that, and now what I'm going to do next is same thing. I'm going to bring this pattern in, and I'm going to hit or hold the shift key because it's in transform mode when you bring it in. So let's say I wanted it this scale, but it's not big enough to fit. So what I'm going to do is get it to the scale I want, and I'm also going to do the blending mode so I can see through as I do it. Now remember, if it's a white background, it automatically goes to transparent. If it's not a white background and you just want the actual print itself, I pulled one in and I'll show you how we can get rid of the color if you wanted to do something like that. So I've got this, and let's say this is the scale I want, and I'm going to hit OK or enter and return. Now what I'm going to do with this layer is I'm going to hit V, which will take me back to our move tool. I'm going to hold the Alt key and make another one, and then hold the Alt key and make another one to where they're on top of each other correctly. There we go. And then hold the Alt key and make another one. Let me zoom in so I can see what we're doing. Just want to kind of match, and with my arrow keys, I'm kind of making these. Let me do that. And all right, so now I have 4 of these that I know that'll fill this. And so instead of clipping all of them, what I'm going to do is, remember, if you hold the shift key, you can select more than one thing, right? So I'm going to select that one, I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to select that one. And those are my 4. Then I can go up to image, or I'm sorry, go to layer, and merge layers. The shortcut is Command E. So either way, layer, merge layers, and it is now one layer, and I'm going to change it back to multiply. Come on. Come on. I don't want it ended up on the background, so I do want background normal. Sorry. So if this happens, just know your layers, know where you are. If something isn't working, and a lot of you who send me messages, that's all it is you're just on the wrong layer. So please just check, and that's what happened. It went to the background layer for some reason. So I've hit multiply again, and so we're back in business. And it's one layer now, so I can manipulate it. And this isn't perfect here, so I may just move it around a little bit like that. Now what I'm going to do is clip this layer here, and then let me zoom out so it's not so pixelated so you can actually see the clip on here. And what I might do on this background layer now too is I can see this. I might want to play with the, let's do levels. And get the shadow on it, and then also to hit OK. So this shows you that you can go back in and manipulate even once you've done what you wanted to do to it. If you want to make adjustments, you certainly can. I'm going to play with the opacity of this just a little if it's supposed to be a little bit lighter. And that's how you can clip it. Now, like I said, this one was so pixelated, and I'm in mid-video, so I didn't want you to have to stop and wait for me to go find another image. But please make certain that yours is a decent resolution and not something that looked like the one I brought in. And pay attention to these edges, okay, when you go in and you're doing the select and mask on these, because these are common things that will happen to you. And so this is how you can clip a pattern to a chair if the scale of the pattern that you bring in isn't what you want. So now what I'm going to do is turn off these layers and go back to the original. And like I said, I have brought in another pattern that has color. And I brought this in on purpose, so Command T, first thing, I am going to make this to scale like this, and I'm going to hit return or OK, do a blending mode. And you can see if I move this, it still has pink in it. So what I'm going to do is go back to normal so you can see. I am actually going to take the color out of this pattern as well. So I'm going to go like we did with the chair. Now on the socks, we're going to do this with a pattern if the pattern has a color in it. So edit and image adjustments, black and white. Now I'm going to do blending mode. And then what I'm going to do is clip and go over here. And so we've got to clip that layer here. And then what I'm going to do is go back here, add a layer in between the two, find a color I like, and do something like this. And then this is a foreground color now. So what I'm going to do is shift delete. And so instead of hitting color, since I selected it from over here, that's my foreground. So getting used to doing that. So there it is, it's clipped. And then the last thing I'm going to do is multiply. And so now I have that pattern on here. Now, if you wanted to keep this white as part of the pattern, then what you would do is do another layer and you could hand paint the white back in. And do it with a low opacity to kind of help with that. But that would be something, we'll do later on. Right now, just get comfortable with clipping. And also remember what I showed you. If you have a pattern and it just does not look believable, what I'm going to do is go here, Command T, and the Smart Filter applied, this layer will be turned off temporarily. That's okay with me. And this has come up. And now what I'm going to do is, remember I've told you about the warp tool. So if you want to warp your fabric a little bit so it looks a little bit more believable, I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Warp. And then what you can do is, let's say this little piece in here needs to go in that direction. Make sure to keep it on there, but it needs to go in the direction of the sofa. And I might want to pull this one in. So see how we could bring that down. Move that in a little as it curves around. Curve this down because of the chair curves right here. And then if I'm okay with that, and so see, I can warp the fabric to actually fit onto the image itself. And so it makes it a little more believable instead of it being this flat, straight black hearts that are just straight down on the image. It actually takes the turn of whatever it is. See, all this goes in this way. So I was just following the direction of the furniture itself. Okay, so this is your project for your first assignment. And just take it slow and stop and start the video as you need to. And like I said, if you're a fashion major, use something appropriate. And if you are an interior VMed major, then use something from an interior. All right, good luck.